First of all, a very great pleasure and an honor to be with you. But what is it that prevents us from being simple? What is it that wants to make us, inside of us, what is it that wants to make us look something other than what we are inside? Whether it's in terms of the way we think and present ourselves intellectually or articulate ourselves, or whether it's the way in which we live our lives. There were 2 or 3 things that came to my mind which are a bit of a hindrance for us. And the first thing that came to my mind was our concern about the opinions of others. Baba calls it, or in the Brahma Kumaris, we understand very clearly that loklaj, the concern about loklaj, that when we're so worried about what the society thinks, what other people think of us, then we try to keep up our standards and levels that are going to be acceptable to other people. And what that means is that, in fact, when I live my life on that basis, I want to be accepted, I want to be seen, I want to be acknowledged, I want to be respected, I want to be seen and heard in a certain way. Then we try to live our lives in the way that other people want us to live them. So it's a very big question to ask ourselves, even in my own spiritual life, am I really living my life with integrity to my own self and to my own commitment to spirituality and my deep relationship with God? Or am I living my life to conform, to belong, to feel that I'm part of something, which is natural to human instinct? And it's not a problem to want to belong, but it becomes a problem when I compromise truth, when I compromise my own self, when I compromise what I recognize to be the right thing, truly. And so this is a very big question that I think it's important for all of us to ask on a regular basis. And I ask myself this question to my own self: am I living my life honestly and truly to how I want to live it? Am I living my life the way God would want me to live it? Or am I living my life the way people want me to live it? This is very natural, in the sense that it's very common, not natural, it's very common. And when I start to do that, when I live my life on the basis of how others want me to be and live, then my life becomes very complicated. My life then no longer is simple, because I'm chasing my own tail. I'm chasing other people's tails that are many, many, many tails. And when I work towards pleasing other people in that way, then I never arrive anywhere. I never get somewhere. It's always as if there's something else, someone else to please, something else to do, something else to achieve, and my life does not become clean, and my life gets very complicated. So that's one thing to think about. The other aspect is, there is a terminology that I heard someone use over a long period of time: looking good syndrome. When I want to look good, doesn't matter whether I am good or not inside, when I want to look like I'm doing the right thing, behaving the right way, and everybody thinks I'm wonderful. When I live my life with that syndrome, looking good, then my life is not going to be simple, because I want to dress in a certain way so that it's attractive, it's acceptable, it's glamorous. And this doesn't only just mean in terms of, somebody mentioned about, I think Manoj Bhai mentioned a point that was raised by your last conversation about movie stars and all of that. Forget about movie stars, that's very obvious. But even amongst us, you know, somebody also asked the question, do I have to wear white when I come to your gatherings? So do I wear white to look good, look the part in the Brahma Kumaris, and so I'm more easily acceptable? So why am I wearing white even? If it's looking good syndrome will make me feel that amongst the Brahma Kumaris, everybody wears whites, and if you wear white, then you are the in person, you are one of the crowd. Is that the reason why I wear white? I may understand why I wear them, but why do I actually do it? So this aspect of looking good in the way I dress, the way I live, how is my life so kind of make it so that other people are envious of me. If I'm living my life to make other people think, wow, she's made it, she's got everything, she's got position, she's got possession, she's got people, she's made it. Why? What is it that I'm thinking as I live my life? And so my sense is that in order to make my life simple, I need to be able to have renunciation. The expression that we use is tyag. You know, in Kali Yuga, in this Iron Aged world, there is so much, so many comforts, not just comforts, but everything is attainable easily. Am I always thinking about what next I could have? And if that's the case, then my lifestyle becomes very, very complicated. I never arrive at a place of peace and contentment. Peace and contentment with what I have. You know, it's in India that we say, don't we, that if you live in a hut, or when you live in a hut, in other words, you have simply what you need. Do you see someone else's palace and knock your hut down because it's such a small hut? But that hut that you have is the roof over your head. It provides you with shelter. It provides you with a place where you can rest. And so, you know, taking stock of what I have that serves me. It's something that I myself was doing a couple of weeks ago with a friend of mine from Australia. And we were saying, okay, let's pick on something that we can work on together so that we can, we didn't use the word simplicity, but that's what it meant. That am I aware of all the amazing, wonderful and beautiful and powerful aspects that I have in my life? They keep me serving, keep me served, and that allows me to serve in return. And so if I want to keep my life simple, then I think we have to take stock of every little thing that we have, that is, whether it's whatever kind of roof I have over my head, at least I have a roof over my head. Do I eat extravagantly or do I eat simply? Nowadays, doctors will say that actually if you eat too many varieties of foods at the same meal, then actually it's not very healthy for you. It's not good for your digestion. It's better to eat less and eat fewer varieties than having huge varieties of food. You know, here at the retreat center, I'm conscious of how we used to serve huge meals. And in doing so, it was our generosity of spirit. It's God's generosity of spirit. But yet at the same time, to be conscious of allowing people to recognize what is good for them and helping people in that way. So, you know, simplicity for me goes through to all of these different aspects. Do I do things to impress people? And if I'm doing things to impress people, then I'm again constantly going on and on about what I need to be doing. So I boiled it down to a few things, actually. That one is to think simply. What does it mean? And you know, Manoj mentioned some points about that. He said, don't think. Actually, she meant don't think. She didn't mean don't think too much. She meant don't think. In other words, think about what you need to think about right now, at this moment, in this situation, at this time. That's it. That's not thinking too much. And when one becomes present in this moment, here and now, and not thinking about yesterday, not kind of regretting yesterday, not worrying about the future, then I'm able to think about the present. But having said that, I do need to finish my past. I do need to do this inner work to say, okay, this has been my past. These are my lessons. These are my mistakes. And these are my lessons. And I need to make sure that I learn the lessons, that I implement the lessons that I've learned in the future. Then I can let go of my past. I can't just say, okay, well, don't think about the present. Just think about the present and don't worry about the future. It doesn't work like that. Because we are living, in a sense, our minds and our hearts have absorbed, even our bodies have absorbed past. And so the influences of the past is there. So I can stay awake to that influence and therefore say to myself, okay, this is my past and I need to be able to be free from this past. I recognize this has been my journey. This is where I've come from. And this is where we say goodbye. Then I can be present at this moment.
I just want to remind you there is a translation going on. Can you go a little bit slowly?
Yes, this is my eternal problem.
Easier.
I'll try and be as slow as I can, no problem. It is true. So, past. To make peace with my past, to recognize it, not ignore it, not pretend that it didn't happen. But yes, this was my past. This is where, you know, here in the Brahma Kumaris, in our daily lessons, sometimes we're reminded, write down all the things of your past, because when you write it down, then you own it. You see it in front of you and you realize that this is what I've done and I own it. It's only when I own it that I can say, okay, I'm willing to let go, which consists of forgiveness for my own self and forgiveness for the situations, or forgiveness of the people that were part of that situation. Then I can be present. And only when I'm in present moment, then I can be simple. And that is to say, Baba says, make plans, but have a plain intellect. So having a plain intellect is being simple. So in other words, I've foreseen what might be required. It's possible to go somewhere and do something and make it happen in this way, step by step. And then plain intellect. Not go over it again and again and again. Worry about it. So plain intellect means then to be silent, to be quiet, to be introverted and introspective, to create vibrations and energy, to allow things to happen. That for me is simplicity. When I get caught up in thinking, I've got to do this, I've got to make this happen, I've got to make sure that other people do this, then I can't be simple, because my mind is so caught up and extracted by are distracted by things of all of this. So simplify my thinking. Trust in your thinking. Trust in your thinking allows you to be quiet and peaceful. And of course, I'm only going to be able to trust my thinking when I know my thinking is supported by what God says, by what God wants me to do. And I've agreed to doing what God wants me to do. So then I can make my, and you know, there are times when I can just actually forget simple thinking, this no thinking, where I just allow God. The only work I've got to do is prepare my mind, make my mind a plowed field in which seeds can be planted. That's all. If my mind is a plowed field where all the weeds are taken out, and the earth is churned, and all the nutrients come up to the surface, that's when seed can be planted. That's where God can plant a seed in my mind. And a seed that's absolutely and certainly going to germinate. It's not going to be a seed that just gets sown and doesn't germinate. So in the practice for this, to simplify my thinking, is silence, trust, quiet, being with my own self, in my own company, being with God. You all spoke about beautiful things of purity and simplicity in terms of acceptance and forgiveness, all of that, absolutely. Where is it going to come from? It can only come when I make my own mind and heart like that of God's. And I can only make my heart and mind like God's when I create resonance between myself and God. And my work is to make my mind such that it's resonating with God's frequency, God's vibrations, God's energy. Then when it comes to living my life, then my life can possibly be a simple one. So thoughts and simplicity in that. Words, simple words. We become very good at using a lot of words. So if there's anything if I had to give you any feedback about the hour that I heard before this, and so I feel I don't really want to say too much, but you're sitting there expectantly waiting for me to say something. But my own preference would be, let's just sit together in silence. So too many words can also be a distraction. And that distraction is dissipating my energy. So Daddy also used to say that speak words, fewer words, but speak words that are precious. Let your words be such that they're like pearls and people are waiting to catch those pearls. So it means my thinking has to be simple. My words have to be simple. You know, well, you all know that I used to translate for Daddy Janki. And so often, many clever translators came along the way. And I say clever because their vocabulary was huge, much bigger than mine often. But Daddy's vocabulary was very simple. Daddy didn't use complicated words. Daddy's words were very simple, but they went right to your heart. And you anybody could understand them, whether they were highly educated or they were simple people. Everybody understood that is language. But when you use complicated vocabulary, then some people, you lose some people. So I remember when I used to translate for Dadi, I felt that it was important to bring forth Dadi herself. It wasn't about, and the only way, I wasn't a good translator, I feel. There were very, as I said, clever translators, but why I could continue to do it and why Dadi continued to let me do it is because she felt that she came through. And I could only do that because I would use the same simple, limited language that Dadi used. And I felt that was important to be able to articulate Dadi. So words have to be very simple too. There are times when complicated language can be used, but there are times when it's not necessary. But simple language, everybody understands. So I think it's important to be simple in our words, in our ability to articulate. Actions. And I'm sure you've experienced this for your own self, as well as have seen other people, that when actually we think too much, we think, I know someone who is so good. She's absolutely brilliant at detail of everything. So meticulous, and she can, you know, kind of foresee if you do this and that will happen and that will happen and that will happen. But the thing is that she needs to do all of that right from the outset. And then the problem becomes when she wants everybody else to comply to that thinking. When everybody, why isn't so-and-so doing that? Why isn't so-and-so looking at that? Why isn't so-and-so, foreseeing what might be next? So she wants everybody else to do the same. That doesn't work. For me, what I've found that's helpful for me, instead of making big, long plans and action plans, let's do it for 2 weeks. And let's review it after 2 weeks. Let's do it for a month and then review it after a month and see what else is required. And sometimes I wonder whether that's my lack of capacity to do something or whether it's just my way. I think I've come to accept that it's my way of working, which allows so many possibilities to occur. And you know how Daddy Janki will make plans about something. She'll say, okay, let's do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And then when we're actually nearly there, she says, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do that, and we're going to do that. So some people would be thrown by that. They can't think, oh my God, we were thinking this is what was going to happen. This is what we were planning. But in the moment, there's intuition. In the moment, there is a foresight that wasn't possible a week ago or 2 weeks ago or whenever. So, you know, when I plan my actions too much, then I'm going to get lost. And actually, the scene in front of me is going in this direction, but my plans are going in a totally different direction. So simplifying actions for me also means doing one thing at a time. You know, nowadays, multitasking is a huge thing, but multitasking comes at a price. And it's a price of yourself. Price of not being able to be clear. You know, somebody talked about simplicity, communication. And I think simplicity is also clarity. Simplicity leads to clarity. And clarity will lead to simplicity. Clarity is such an important thing. If you're not clear, then a lot of confusion. for yourself and for everyone else around you too. So actions based on clarity. And then, of course, our lifestyle, which I've already mentioned. You know, every now and again, there was a time, I'll be honest, there was a time when I had a small little room that I lived in. Every 6 months, I would go through all my stuff and look at what I haven't used in the last 6 months, and I would get rid of it. How many things you have in your home, in your room, in your wardrobe, in your cupboard that you haven't used for 6 months? Okay, I'll be generous. Say a year. Forget a year. Some people will have something for 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, which they haven't used. So for me, an aspect of simplicity, simple lifestyle is declutter. How much clutter do we have in our homes in terms of personal stuff, in terms of, I don't know, artifacts that you might keep, the books that you might keep, the ornaments that you might keep, the furniture that you might keep? It's there. You know, my parents are quite old. My dad's going to be 91 this year. And, you know, they have a tiny little house. And it's everything that's there, he has to keep it. And I go and I say, let's get rid of this and let's get rid of it. Are you using this? If you're not using this, why don't we give this away to someone else? But it's very hard for him. It's very hard for him. It's always been there. So it has to be there. Yet it might get in the way. It's sometimes falling apart. It's not serving anything anymore. So simplicity. How cluttered is my life? You know, they say the way in which you live, the way, the environment in which you live is a reflection of what's going on in here. If there is clutter around me, it means there's clutter here. If my desk is cluttered, then it means my work is cluttered, whether I like it or not, whether I own up to it or not. How much is my desk clear? I was I met an astrologer once, and she did my little thing. Not that I'm into astrology in that sense, and I get into it, but in the first few lines, she said to me something that was very interesting. And she said to me, when you arrive at your desk, you need to first of all make sure that your desk is clear, tidy up the desk, and then you start your work. And she's right. She's right. I can't, too many papers, too many things. I can't think clearly. And I think it is the case for all of us. But we don't realize that we're not thinking clearly. We think we are, but we're not thinking clearly because of the clutter around us. So in our lifestyle, decluttering is very important. Now, I mentioned about food, and many varieties of food means that there is it's not healthy for us. How many clothes do we need? How many sets of clothes do we need? You know, Dadi Janki used to pride herself on how she came with a little Air India bag with 2 sets of clothes in it. You washed one set and you wore another set. I remember it was our early morning session in which our class, it came up that, you know, people have too many pairs of shoes. And I remember I was with Dadi Janki at that time. And I said, but Dadi, here in the UK, I need indoor shoes for winter and indoor shoes for summer. I need outdoor shoes for winter and outdoor shoes for summer. I need walking shoes. I already have 7 or 8 pairs of shoes. She laughed. And it's true. I mean, that's one thing. But besides that, how many pairs of walking shoes do I have? Do I have 2 or 1 or 10? Talk about simple, theoretically. So if I'm truly willing, many people spoke today about wanting to take a commit to being simple. So I'd like to challenge you that when we finish this session, it's a weekend, isn't it? Today is a Saturday, tomorrow is Sunday. Can you go through your stuff and find out how much of it is clutter and how much of it is necessary? What will you find? How much will you find? First start. You know, saying food sits in our cupboards for such a long time. It's gone off, but it's still sitting there because we haven't got around to throwing it away. Cans or bags or whatever. So anyway, I'll stop here because it is a subject that's vast and we can go on, but let's have a few moments of silence together. And then if after that you have some thoughts or questions you'd like to share, we can take that up for a few minutes. But too many words, lots of words. So let's just stop and absorb. Perhaps you can ask yourself, what is it that resonates with you to create, make tomorrow simple? Let's not talk about months and weeks ahead, but how could you make your tomorrow simple? Which aspect of your life? Mind, thoughts, words, actions, relationships. I didn't take up relationships, but expectations in relationships make life complicated. Holding grudges makes relationships complicated. Feelings of animosity, dislike, makes relationships complicated. What is it that helps us keep our relationships clean? Letting go, moving on, not blaming, not accusing. All of these things make relationships complicated. Complicated relationships means relationships of friction, conflict. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. If you really want to be simple, no one is right, no one is wrong. Everyone just is what they are. And they will only be who they are and what they are. They can't be anything else. So let's just stop for a few moments. And just those of you who haven't got your cameras on, I assume that you're still sitting down quietly and absorbing. And as you do that, just be with yourself, self-reflective. What are the areas in which I could become more simple? When I become simple, my life becomes easy. It becomes a flow. It becomes natural. Everything has its rightful place. Am I at ease with that? That everything has its rightful place. So what do I need to do to make my life simple, easy, comfortable, and a flow